In meditation, we're studying the nature of things, how stuff arises and kind of dissipates and changes and does all these different things, right? It also shows us the nature of our desires and our wants. Recently, I wanted a new keyboard. I didn't need one. I just wanted it because it looked cool and I thought it would be nice. Right? In my mind, I somehow warped that into thinking like I would feel some type of way if I got this keyboard. And so I kind of sat with this in meditation and realized like this object isn't going to really give me any lasting satisfaction. Sure, I'll feel good in the moment. We all do. That's why we buy things. Our whole economic engine is built on the principle I'm describing here, which is if I get something in the short term, it'll make me feel some type of way until it dissipates. And then I get something else in the short term, and I just play this game over and over again. So, how do you actually get any real satisfaction out of this thing we call life? Well, I think it's a bit counterintuitive. It's actually by getting better at learning to make space and to let go. There's this quote from Gloria Steinem that says, "The first problem for all of us, men and women, is not to learn, but to unlearn. To begin to shed our beliefs of what we think we know rather than being caught up in it." In meditation practice, you have a slew of objects to work with: your breath, your sensations in your body, the sounds, like all of the things that enable you to interact with the environment around you. Those are kind of your anchors and focal points that you can use. One of the things that's also available is this empty space that exists within the practice. If you take a breath in right now and hold your breath at the top, you'll find that there's space that happens from that, from pausing. As you deepen your meditation practice, you learn that there's space that happens with your thoughts. You know this to be something that's often titled flow. When you're so deeply ingrained and focused in an activity or an event that everything drops away. And it is in this emptiness, as the Tao says, in this emptiness, that a clay pot's value comes from its emptiness. A wheel, its ability to be used is from the hub and spokes that make up the wheel, that empty space there. A cup is valuable because of its emptiness, right? If a cup wasn't empty, it'd be too full. And so as we move through our lives and we collect our karma from our actions that build on our other actions, like we've got to find a way to let that go. To not cling and grab and hold on to more stuff. You actually don't need more anything. You probably need less of everything. And in getting less of stuff, you make yourself lighter. And in making yourself lighter, you start to realize that everything you've been searching for out there has always been with you in here. Now, nowhere in this little pep talk did I say anything about this being easy. We all have our desires, our wants, things we think we need. I'm just asking you to recognize the game, to notice when it's happening, and wherever you can, find the small little wins that get you a little bit closer to cleaning out your closet, to making space. Because here's the deal. When you make that space, you allow room for new growth. The version of you hearing this message right now is not the version of you from 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago. It won't be the version of you 5 years from now. One of the greatest tricks the mind has ever pulled is to make you believe that yourself is actually stable and continuous. Well, it is continuous, but it isn't stable. It's changing, just like your breath, just like your sensations, just like all of the receptors you have to interact with the world. Yourself is a moving target. And so when you can notice that you're clinging to things, when you're making definitives around stuff, take a minute and pause and realize that, yeah, you hated Brussels sprouts when you were 5, and now you like them with balsamic vinegar. Like, that's a real thing. Like, you're not definitive. So play the game differently and give yourself a chance to stop suffering. Because how much of your pain and suffering comes from the fact that you want to be the way that you like that is no longer that way anymore? And if you just simply rolled with some acceptance, allowed it to move through you, you'd make space to maybe love the way you could be, or to be something you never even imagined. Man, I hope this message helps. Let me know in the comments or whatnot. And yeah, until we see each other, be well, be good. So, for folks who are joining us for the first time, just something to kind of settle your mind around. In this guided meditation, I will be providing you various prompts to kind of pay attention to and to work with. There'll be opportunities for silence and just sitting in the moment. And so we're gonna oscillate between those kind of experiences. It's a non-movement practice. So yeah, being comfortable for the next 30 minutes is really the only ask, whatever that is for you, and allowing yourself the space to be present here. And with that, let's go ahead and begin. If you haven't done so already, I'd ask you to just check your posture. And what I want you to kind of notice is your ability to breathe. So, whether that's sitting upright or sitting in a position that doesn't compromise your ability to breathe, right? Because breath is such a huge object and component of our practice. It's good to be able to take a good breath in. And so, and I invite you to do that. So, take an inhale and then exhale and notice if any of that's compromised, and then make any adjustments that you might need. Next thing I'd ask is to find a place to put your hands so they're steady and still, so that they're not kind of moving all over the place and distracting you. You want to minimize the physical distractions. You'll have enough going on mentally. And the third prompt when it comes to posture, is just closing the eyes. If it feels safe, I invite you to do that. That helps with the visual distractions of practice. With the eyes closed, you can kind of turn your gaze inwards and start to notice what's going on there. So those are kind of the key setups for getting started in practice. And what we're attempting to do today is to look at the nature of things, the things that make up your moment to moment experience. We kind of weave these moments into days into weeks, weeks into months, so on and so forth. And so we are zooming in a bit, getting a little closer to our experience to understand how we form patterns and the way things kind of work. And so that means there could be a lot going on when you just start to sit still with the body, with the mind. So I ask you to consider taking a supportive, curious, interested approach to all that's going to come up during practice today. So much of our daily lives, we can get lost in needing things to be a certain way or judging things for what's happening. And I'm going to encourage you to see if you can minimize that as much as possible. And I'd like to start us initially here with just focusing a bit on the breath. And the way you can do that is to really notice and hone in the spaces and the places in which the breath is showing up. So I want you to try to recognize when your next in breath comes in and when it goes out, and all the parts of your body that are affected with your breathing pattern. So that could be as simple as feeling the rising and the falling of the breath, the belly expanding and contracting as you breathe, or the chest moving up and down as you breathe in and breathe out. In this way of spotlighting your attention on the breath, you create the opportunity to build your focus, your ability to focus, to strengthen the muscles of concentration. Because as you focus on your breath, there are plenty other objects to distract you from focusing on your breath. The way your body feels, the stream of thoughts and commentary that might be going on in the practice, external noises that are appearing in the moment. And a good strategy to work with what would be considered a distraction when you're focusing and concentrating is simply to be aware that you've lost your focus and patiently guide yourself back to observing the breath. As you're feeling the breath and paying attention to the speed of the breath and the depth of the breath, I invite you to start to notice the pauses in the breath. And if it isn't immediately apparent that there is a pause, the way that you can find it is the next time you take an in breath, just hold at the top of that breath for 3 seconds and then release it. Same with the exhale. When you empty out all of the air, hold at the bottom of the breath for 3 seconds. And as you kind of explore and play with the breath, feeling those pauses, you get your first introduction into important component of your practice. And that's this idea of how meditation introduces us to the power of emptiness, the power of openness. There's a Taoist quote that says the power of a clay pot or a cup is in its emptiness. That's where its usefulness lies. And with all of the various objects we're faced with in our practice, one of those objects is emptiness, is space. And it's the space that enables each moment to happen and unfold. And in exploring that idea a bit further, I want you to begin to shift your attention from concentrating solely on the breath to taking a step back as the witness and opening up your the lens of your attention so that it's a bit wider. And so that now you kind of sit and observe all of the things that are passing through this moment. So it isn't just solely you focusing on the breath. It's being okay with the sounds, trying not to attach or grab onto the thoughts as they move through, to notice the parts of your body that have any density to it, as well as the emptiness or the space where you don't feel that density in your body. The dance of these objects and energies playing around with one another, working in conjunction with one another. Notice how there's room for all of them to be present. And that as one thing disappears, there's room for a new thing to enter the space. And from this kind of concentrated witness point of view that you're taking, I want you to notice the space physically around you. See if you can sense and feel the space in front of you, behind you, beside you, above you, and below you. And when you're sitting observing this space, just notice that all of these various energies move through you in different ways, but they interact with one another. A thought leads to a sensation which changes the breath. The breath changes the way something feels in the body and vice versa. But there isn't anything you have to do to receive this. These moments just happen. Your mind might become distracted, and distraction at this point of the practice looks like one of these objects grabbing a hold of your attention. So rather than just sitting and observing the openness of the moment, you got lost in a thought, or you didn't like the way something felt, or your mind started telling you you're doing the practice wrong. When you encounter those moments, the goal here is to simply release them back into the space and return to that openness of your attention. And with all the things that are taking place, there is value in allowing the change to happen, to allow each object its own space and opportunity to shift and change, because they're all simultaneously going through that, with the exception of the things you're holding on to. In holding on to them, you start to clutter the space a bit, not leaving room for the full experience to unfold, which is why letting go and allowing things to freely move through in practice teaches us a new way of interacting with what we encounter. And the thing about our attention is it can scan, it can move, it can go wide, it can be narrow. It can be whatever you need it to be for the moment. So I would ask you to direct your attention all the way down into your feet. Feel where your feet are resting on the surface beneath you or planted firmly on the ground. If there if there's any weight distributed in the feet. noticing any textures that are touching them and feeling and sensing both the left and right sides of the body. We're going to work our way from the ground up, from the feet to the crown of the head, using our attention very much like a scanner to just move through the body and see where we encounter comfort, discomfort, like, dislike, or just simply a bit of the emptiness we've been working with today. Letting the attention scan from the feet into the legs, feeling the front and the back sides of the legs, noticing the sensations that might be present there. As you move up the lower legs into the upper part of the legs and into the hips, where your weight might be distributed in the surface that you're sitting on. Moving from the lower half of the body, you begin to kind of move your way into the torso, feeling the front and the back of the body. Breath is really predominant in this space. Noticing tension you might be holding in the shoulders, or if you can even feel the heart beating in this space. Widening from the torso, your attention starts to scan the arms, working your way up from the fingertips through the wrists, through the forearms, all the way into the upper arms, arriving back, connecting to the shoulders. Noticing as you move your way up the body, how we move from this very dense and kind of rounded sensation to a lighter sensation as we move up each layer of the body, coming into the neck, the jaw, where we might be holding tension, the mouth, the nose, where the breath is entering the body. The weight of the eyes in their sockets, the visual field, looking out into the darkness behind your closed eyelids. Your forehead, crown of your head, back of the head, and ears. And as you sit here with a general overview of the sensations present in your body, let your attention move from a more grounded sensation that you feel to something that's a bit lighter. It's a little harder to notice. Playing with those opposites of sensation. Eventually allowing your attention to just rest here open to all the sensations of your body, meeting these sensations with a warm and curious attitude. The landscape of our body is so complex. So, having a bit of openness and neutrality to what you're sensing and feeling in this moment gives you a bit of space to appreciate all of the many ways that this body has changed, that it has renewed itself throughout the course of your lifetime. Just like the breath renews itself, this process of letting go, emptying out, making space, then enables new things to grow and new opportunities to arise. And in appreciating the body in this moment, notice where you feel that gratitude, where it starts to bubble up and how it shows up in the moment. In the last few minutes of practice, let your attention return to the breath. Turn to allowing it to return to the place it started. But even now, that might be different. As we begin to bring practice to a close, consider the merits of the work you've done here today. to sit with yourself and study the nature of the things that arise in the moment. Maybe considering offering that to yourself or to others that you care about. It's the work that we do here isn't just for us. It's so that we can understand the other beings in our lives and the way they have to work through the things that arise for them. When you're ready, you can start to blink the eyes open, take in the visual field, which is just a larger view of everything you've sat with and practiced today.